Welcome back to There Will Be Expletives, episode 98, Geoff.
98, in parentheses, too many.
98 mediocre episodes.
98, open parentheses, we're sorry, close parentheses.
Yeah, I'm surprised we kept it going as long as we have, to be honest.
There's nothing better than a weekly outlet to bitch. And that is what,
true. It's true. We usually walk away from here feeling a lot better.
There will be catharsis. That's like the real gist of it.
Yeah. Someone who's not feeling better this week, which I can't really blame them, but at the same time, it's kind of ironic, is that apparently Alien 5 was axed, which was Neill Blomkamp.
This makes me sad.
It makes me sad, and the reason I say it's ironic is because the only reason it was ever going to happen in the first place was when they told him no, and he dumped all the concept art online, and people were like, "Oh my God, this is incredible!" And they're like, "You know what?
So good."
They're like, "We made a mistake," and then when the interest kicked up, Ridley Scott's like, "Hey, I'm still interested over here," and then like, "Oh, you know what? We have Ridley Scott." So it's like the only reason we're getting Alien Covenant is Neill Blomkamp, even though he's got nothing to do with the project, and he lost his own movie because of it.
And Ridley Scott's like the Stephen King of movie making. Like, I swear to God, he can put together like a $50 million movie in like a 3-day weekend.
Yeah,
like the dude is just an absolute machine. And what kind of sucks?
For so long.
What kind of sucks is, like, as amazing as Ridley Scott is, and how good I do think Covenant is going to be based off like what all we're seeing so far and the tone of it and everything. If I had to pick one, I think I'd actually rather see Alien 5 just to see someone else's take on it.
Yeah,
Blomkamp is so tailor-made for that property based off District 9 that I really would have loved to have seen his specific take on it. And yeah, it's just a shame. It's like now the thing is like eventually, you know, Ridley Scott eventually will stop making alien movies in like the year 2055. So maybe eventually Blomkamp will get a shot.
Yeah, I'm pretty sad about it. I was really hoping to get 2 separate like Alien franchises moving from the same place. But like one series of prequels and one series, because if they did like, you know, like Star Wars is spacing out, we could have had an Alien movie every year.
And then Nick Fury shows up at the end of the credits, and he combines all the xenomorphs. And then he also shows up in the Predator movie.
I was in he shows up in Predator.
Yeah.
And at the end of It.
Yeah, exactly. Because fuck it, that's why. I'd watch It versus Alien versus Predator. Just to confirm the article too, his quote, "There was never a screenplay, just an idea that evolved into a pitch of 10 pages. I was always just a producer, but it didn't go any further because Fox decided that it didn't want to do it," and that's really Scott. It's just a bummer because, you know, especially for you and me, more Alien, regardless of the final quality, is always good because it's more Alien.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna watch it anyway. Something that is actually happening, and good God, is it ever? Sony dropped fucking finally the first trailer for Dark Tower, which feels like this movie has been in development in some way or another for literally like 25 years.
I was gonna say, it feels like since the day I was born, they've been talking about this movie.
It's nuts, and that's not even like hyperbole. Like people have been wanting a movie or a TV show adaptation of the fucking Gunslinger since the early 90s. And then like just development hell after development hell, which is odd because when you just think of how many times Stephen King works have been adapted, and it's a bunch of obscure ones too. It's not like just the obvious ones they got, because like even back in the 80s, Maximum Overdrive happened, you know?
Right.
But we can't get The Dark Tower, which is like arguably his most famous and beloved work.
I wonder why. Was it a case of we don't know how to make that work, or technology hasn't caught up with the idea?
I think it is the technology specifically behind the way the world is. I'm about halfway through the first book, and I can kind of see how it would be daunting because like they do have a lot of world building as far as it's kind of like a Western, but it's more of like a fucked up kind of you know in like Mad Max Fury Road when they had a wasteland, but it would be kind of like CGI heavy when they would have like dust storms and shit in the background. Yeah. That's kind of like the areas that they're going through, at least from what I've read so far. So I think that was probably the biggest stumbling block, but just thank God it's finally happening. They dropped a couple teasers and then the full trailer. What were your thoughts? Because you haven't read or really you don't really have any connection with it at all.
Normally with the double like parallel world thing going on, I'm usually not a fan of that in storytelling, but it looks pretty interesting. I mean, if nothing else, it's more Idris Elba.
I think you will end up really liking the world building in it because
really?
If it's anything at all like the book, which the trailer appears to be getting the tone down, at least in my opinion, pretty well. I think you'll end up really liking the basic concepts behind it because they're very interesting.
Because it looked pretty awesome. I could watch Idris Elba reloading his revolvers all day.
Dude, everything having to do with the reloading in the trailer is like just like he describes it in the book, and it's fucking wicked. See, like the way he's like rapid reloading it while it's spinning too.
I was almost just like Black Vash the Stampede, like,
right? And then like that first teaser where he reloads the revolver by pulling the bullets into the vertical.
The bullets are in the air and he just takes the guns like that over the bullets.
So good. Yeah, I will watch Idris, and it's like cool. It's like finally, like Ralph Garman on Twitter, like his tweet about it was, like I'm paraphrasing. I finally get to see Idris Elba kick some ass. It's like
yes,
because
how many times is he going to be supporting? Like he's finally.
How many times is it going to be rumored, like for Bond and stuff like that, and then it never actually come to fruition?
Right.
So yeah, I will watch Idris Elba as that type of character any day of the week. That was one of the best scenes in Thor 2 when Heimdall got to whoop some ass finally.
Dude, he had like a sword and a dagger, and he took down a fucking spaceship. I mean, come on. Now the overall reactions online, because it's the internet, have been fairly mixed because I actually like what they're doing with, because okay, here's like I have not delved into this fully because I'm trying to avoid spoilers as I'm reading the novels. Right.
But the gist of what I'm getting is they are not directly adapting it. This in a way is like a sequel to the books, which I think is a smart thing. Because I don't think you should ever, especially when it's a 3,000-page overall story arc, because it's like
damn it, Stephen King.
It's it was 7 books, and because he's Stephen King, he's like, fuck it, I'll do an 8th book. So there was like the run of 7, and then the 8th book is kind of like, I believe it's like 4.5. Mm-hmm. So altogether, you got a story that runs like 3,000 to 4,000 pages long.
There's no way.
It would have to be an HBO television series that lasts like 10 seasons to be able to cover that much material.
Yeah, there's no way.
And people are complaining, but like my whole thing is like, when it comes to adapting stuff from one medium to another, focus on getting the gist of it, the characters, and the tone. The story doesn't necessarily have to be word for word.
See, and that's what book readers piss me off about on anything. Doesn't matter if it's Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, this.
I will get Game of Thrones readers actually seem to be one of the coolest groups when it comes to that, because they seem to be pretty in the realm.
They seem to be pretty open-minded.
They're pretty open-minded,
and I think a lot of that has to do with one, a fandom usually of anything attracts a certain type of person, and two, the subject material in Game of Thrones. You can literally do anything with it. But because it's basically just a bunch of people stabbing each other in the back is all Game of Thrones is. So
In Gardens of Betrayal.
And in Gardens of Betrayal. You kids, get out of my garden. But the thing that pisses me off about book readers on most stuff is they want, and even comic book readers, they want word for word, scene by scene, frame by frame, and you cannot do that. Like, how many hours did it take you to complete your book? The movie would be even worse.
The one time that happened was Sin City, and people still bitched because it was a frame by frame thing.
Because it was too close.
It's like they can't win or lose because no matter what, they're gonna complain. So I actually, from what I've gathered, I'm halfway through book 1. I think the characters seem to be pretty well casted and well represented. The tone of it, the attention to detail regarding his costume, Idris Elba's, and the way he's reloading his revolvers. Like, I just got through a chapter that's an action sequence, and there are entire paragraphs dedicated to him describing his reloading process because that's his whole character. That's like their whole thing is, how good they are. He's a gunslinger. He's like the last of his kind. So like, I really, really like what I'm seeing on it.
From what I got in the trailer, I almost felt like that was gunslinger with a capital G.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's like they're. I'm trying to think of like a comparison, but yeah, it is like, that's a good way to put it, like a gunslinger with a cat. Like they are known for that. It's not a generic term.
Kind of like Final Fantasy VII players would know, like, soldier is always in capitals because that's a rank, or like I know he's absolutely nothing like a Witcher, but something like a Witcher, some kind of cast like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm not gonna be watching any more trailers because I want to save as much. Like
I was gonna say, if you're like us, I felt like, I don't know the book, so I felt like the first trailer was pretty safe. At least watch the teaser, right? I mean,
for me, that teaser with Idris Elba reloading the revolver in midair, I'm like, done there. Ass meat seat, done. Yeah, it opens August 4th, and Jesus Christ, 2017, like, you're making me even more broke with how many fucking movies are on the agenda this year.
I always make a checklist on my phone of the movies that I want to see from the year and the release dates. This year's was like the longest list I have made so far.
Especially for geek culture. From January to now, we are May 3rd. We've already had what we usually get for like a full year's worth of geek pop culture films. It is just nuts. And, it's just like Dark Tower, Kingsman, Thor, Spider-Man, Guardians is this week. It's just, I was
going to say,
every week it's something. Alien. Every week it's something.
Well, we even had shit like Underworld, Resident Evil, John Wick, Lego Batman, and then movies like Get Out and A Cure for Wellness. Then there was, for the geeks out there and all the fandoms, there was Logan, Kong, Beauty and the Beast, Power Rangers, Ghost in the Shell, Guardians of the Galaxy. Next week is Alien. Like,
why'd you have to bring up Ghost in the Shell and bring the room down?
I still, though, I mean, it.
Yeah. The fact that
that's just to May.
Yeah, the fact that it happened is just like mind-numbing as it is.
We've still got Pirates of the Caribbean, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man,
Justice League,
Dark Tower, Justice League,
Kingsman 2,
Kingsman, Blade Runner, Thor.
Oh, and that little movie called Star Wars that comes out at the end.
And Star Wars. And dude, that was me skimming through my list of shit. One of them I got to delete though. I'm not too impressed with the. Was it Dunkirk that got bumped down to PG-13?
Oh, the Nolan one. Yeah, I'll still end up watching it, but I'll probably Netflix it or like Redbox it.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but one of the other movies coming out later this year that is looking pretty good to my eyes is It Comes at Night. Is actually starting to look like, first of all, bravo to everyone behind their marketing department because their trailers are exactly what I want. Yes. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know.
But the first trailer got my reaction of, I wonder what that is. And the second trailer was like, okay, I'm terrified of what that is.
You don't even like.
I don't even know what I'm afraid of.
You don't even know why you should be afraid because it's just so, like the whole the whole trailer is just like a master class at tone. It's not even trying to sell you on a plot at all. It's just,
dude, even if it doesn't have one, I don't really care at this point.
And dude, the fucking sound editing on some of that shit was just like give you nightmares. I am really, really stoked for this. It's got Joel Edgerton, who I really, really like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the sound editing, the cinematography with it's like, it's weird, like it's so dark in the trailers that they're so good at their cinematography that it's like there's almost like depths within how dark it is. It's hard to explain, but there's just something eerie about the way it looks.
Well, I'll tell you what it reminded me of. Some of the cinematography and some of the dark tones, like color tones that have going on in the trailer and stuff, kind of reminds me of Sinister.
Yeah, I could see that definitely. It's like Sinister, even darker.
Mm-hmm. Especially the way like the camera like would slowly turn around corners, the way Sinister did.
Yeah,
and stuff like it. It kind of, and I'm not comparing the movies directly, but it kind of felt a little bit like Sinister.
If anyone happens to be like someone who checks this out on the regular and is curious what Ron and I are always complaining about when it comes to trailers, watch the It Comes at Night trailers and you'll get what we're talking about. Because when you watch It Comes at Night trailer, you don't know, you don't even know why the characters are there. You don't know specific. All you know is there's something bad and it fucking comes at night. Literally, your only lead is the fucking name of the movie.
It baits you just enough.
Yeah,
that you want to see it.
Make me want to know more instead of giving me like the Spider-Man Homecoming trailer. It's just like, here's how we get from point A to point B and the climax and we're done. And that
and Iron Man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all the movie trailers we had. But by the way, it was a very, very slow news week, so we're gonna be done with these pretty quickly. Maybe the biggest news of the week is Netflix dropped the first full Defenders trailer, and good God, did that 4-hour countdown timer begin?
All I want to say is I love Netflix Marvel stuff and hallway fight scenes.
I love the Netflix marketing department.
Yes.
The Netflix marketing department put out a fucking banner for this project of just the shoes of the main characters.
It was like something like high school girls do, you know.
And it was awesome.
It was awesome.
And it got me a fucking poster of just their shoes, and I'm
with Daredevil's walking stick.
But yeah.
Yeah. Dude.
But yeah, let's get into this trailer. I don't even know where to begin.
I don't know, man.
My first note, I think it's fucking hilarious and also sad that you get just as much Iron Fist action in the 2-minute and 30-second Avengers trailer than you did through all 12 and a half painful hours of Iron Fist the show.
Yeah, it was. What was funny is I said that same thing to my wife, and she was like, or that's all the times he uses it in the entire show.
Well,
that's still more.
First of all, seeing Luke Cage put Iron Fist on his ass made me happy as someone who sat through all 12 hours and 45 minutes of Iron Fist.
That was just for you, Geoff.
I was just like, I love you guys. But they had a cooler use of the Iron Fist, anything done in his show, when he punches Luke Cage and it goes slow-mo to show Luke Cage getting fucked up, and you're like, whoa, Danny Rand isn't completely fucking useless now.
You know what they're doing, right? In the Luke Cage trailer, Luke Cage did that to a guy.
Yeah.
So now you're seeing that done to Luke Cage. So yeah, that was cool.
That was really fucking cool.
And then their banter back and forth, like all four of them actually work really well together on screen.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I also really like the dynamic too between the characters of how, like the audience, they all kind of treat Danny Rand like a dipshit. Did you notice that?
I did.
Like the two guys that are show running it, are the two guys who did Daredevil season 2. Those guys should be in charge of all the TV show team ups, or the seasons that are going to branch. Like let's say they ended up getting to the point to where they wanted to continue. You know how like Luke Cage and Iron Fist, Power Man and Iron Fist are always together in the comics.
Yeah.
If they ever got to a point where they needed to take a break from Daredevil for a bit of time, I want those guys doing their show, because they seem to get the group dynamics really, really well, even from what we're seeing on here.
Yeah, dude, the hallway fight sequence we're getting in this, like, they all took turns taking a shot at someone, and it was amazing. It kind of reminded me of like a blend of the two fight scenes we all love from Daredevil, the hallway and the stairwell. Like mixed
just saying
together.
Just saying those words like Jeff nerd tier.
I know. By the way, me and my wife, when I showed that to my wife, we watched it twice. Like
it's fucking great.
So good. I love their banter back and forth. Like I said, like Daredevil and Jessica Jones, like, you look, what'd she say? You look like an idiot, or you look stupid, like, or something like that. And he's like, it's your scarf.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so good. And you know what they did? They showed us all just them. Like, we haven't even seen some of the cool stuff that's in that. We haven't seen any of the enemies, except they showed like one or two.
Yeah,
that was it.
You see Sigourney Weaver. You don't know what her plot line is. You don't know what her agenda is. You don't even know her character's name, I don't think, yet, unless they've confirmed it outside of the trailer.
Is it an original character, or do we know?
I don't even know if they've said who she's going to be playing yet, which is crazy that they've been able to keep it under wraps because it's been happening for so long. But the Nirvana song was back, the "Come As You Are," and it is blended beautifully
everything.
It made me want to just go like to the local pub and get into a bar fight. It's like it gets you fucking pumped up, dude. I was trying to think of any other. It goes to show you how crazy far not only comic book stuff has come, but especially the Netflix television department of Marvel, just the television department in general, to get Sigourney Weaver as the main villain of a Marvel,
right?
Of mostly C and D list characters,
right?
Outside of Daredevil is the highest rated character popularity wise, and he's B. Yeah, like low B even, depending on how you want to really talk about him.
I was thinking, have we ever seen Sigourney Weaver be a villain?
I think she was a bad guy in Elysium, because that was when she had worked with Blomkamp. I think that was.
I didn't see that one. Because I mean, Alien Resurrection, she's just kind of indifferent. She's not really a villain. She's not a hero, and she's not a villain. She's
had such a storied career. I bet she has. It's just I'm not coming up with any on the top of my head. But good God, August 18th. This is going to be 8 episodes long. I am watching it probably in one sitting.
Probably.
Because like,
here's the other thing. It's 8 episodes. It's going to be balls to the wall.
Yeah, finally, one of the Netflix Marvel things is not going to be 13. Thank God. As much as I like them, I'm hoping that when they start getting new contracts done to continue these shows, drop the order down to 8 to 10. I'd be fine with 10. I could understand them wanting to do 10. Yeah,
but
do the Game of Thrones
8 is nice and concise. So.
But the last thing I was going to bring up, in regards to the showrunner guys being the guys from Daredevil season 2, is I think the way they broke up that season, I thought it was genius, because the first third of the season is the Punisher arc, the middle third of the season is the Elektra arc, and then they kind of all culminate back together in a way with the hand stuff towards the end. So I think it's a little bit the way S.H.I.E.L.D. has done this season. That's the thing I was thinking of too, because S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of broke their season down into groups of 3. If any superhero project in the television format wants to continue quality, I think that is the way you have to do it. You can't do like the CW does anymore.
Yeah,
that model, the villain of the week 22 episode, long arc don't work anymore. our attention spans have been destroyed by the likes of Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad, and like when TV got that good, that format is just it is extinct now to me.
Yeah. It definitely gives everything like a 90s feel, basically.
I totally agree. The only one who's been able to get away with it is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they almost feel like mini seasons within the season.
I was going to say, like, it's one season, but we had Ghost Rider, we have live model decoys, and who knows, we might be seeing Ghost Rider again at the end of the season when they bring everything back together.
Yeah, just like the Daredevil thing. It's interesting.
When it comes back from break, they even changed their logos. They changed all the promotional stuff. It's like a whole new season.
Yeah.
So it's pretty genius what they're doing.
CW, take fucking heed.
I know.
For the love of God. I don't even watch most of their shows anymore.
Take heed and don't fuck with Legends of Tomorrow.
I fucking.
And you know what? Legends of Tomorrow is the only one of their shows that doesn't do what we're talking about. It's the only one that maintains their villain.
Yeah, and
or villains.
And they're the only show with the format to be able to do a Doctor Who style thing of the week because they can fucking time travel and do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
There's only so many villains of the week you can do for Barry to run in a fucking circle around. And yeah, but I could do an entire fucking Flash rant right now. I'm not even watching the show. And just hearing the reactions from the bullshit they pulled this week, I could talk about it. But yeah.
Just a real quick aside. I knew that something about the Flash was probably going to come up tonight just because of our text message conversation earlier. And when I first got out of the shower and reached in my closet for a shirt, I grabbed Flash and I was like, no, and I put it back.
I don't think I have worn my Flash t-shirt since the first half of season 2. Like, I swear to God.
It hasn't made it to the Goodwill pile?
It might. August 18th for the fucking Defenders, dude. Give it to me now. Oh, and back to our 2017 discussion. We're only getting a John Bernthal Punisher show at some point as well, too.
I know. Yeah, the shit I rattled off was just movies.
Just movies. It's just like geek fucking overload, dude. Our last bit of news for the week is going to be mostly Raw, and I wanted to get your opinions on this. So apparently, to kind of celebrate the 20th anniversary, what's the company behind it?
Usually it's 4K.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is coming back. And this is going to be, it's an original movie, an original animated movie, right?
Yes.
It's called Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions. We've had now, I think, a couple of trailers, but they just released a brand new one for the DVD release, slated for the HD kind of streaming release is the 13th of June, and then they have like the Blu-ray DVD stuff on the 27th of June. So what were your thoughts on it? Because you just recently watched like Yu-Gi-Oh! In its entirety, right?
I know. It's really funny because I discovered it on Hulu, and I was like, oh my God, they have all 5 seasons. I only own the first 2, and Netflix only has
Did they have commercials on all of it?
Yes.
They did, okay. I was just curious.
There was a few commercial breaks on it. Like they do South Park.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was like, holy shit. So I watched all 5 seasons and I just finished it. And then they announced this. It's like they did it for me. But yeah, I'm a really big Yu-Gi-Oh fan. I was back in the day, and I forgot how much I loved it until recently.
Back in the day, I played the fuck out of the card game. I watched maybe a handful of episodes, and I liked the show, but it wasn't one that I watched repeatedly. I was mostly just into the collecting and playing the card game.
I liked how they could take a card game and make it a fucking edge of your seat 4-episode duel. You know?
While you were watching the show, you occasionally would give me like kind of a rundown of what they were doing. I was like, they did that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like you wouldn't expect.
It was not a kid's show.
You wouldn't expect it. It's like they brought in like Stephen Moffat for a couple of seasons to come up with concepts for fucking
and you know what's funny? It actually did the thing we were just talking about. So they would have an overall story arc. Then when that concluded, when they introduced a character named Duke Devlin, who's in the trailer.
That's a great name.
He was the creator of Dice Monsters. It was an alternate version of the Duel Monsters game they play in the show. And they had that little tiny arc. Then they do a main arc. Then there's another variation of the game for a small arc. And they kind of So they weren't always just constantly dueling back and forth. They changed up the game every once in a while, but the main story arc was always the main game.
It's fucking impressive to me because I wouldn't even know where to begin when writing a TV show based off a fucking card game. Like, I'm just...
It was pretty impressive. Like as a kid, I didn't think about that type stuff, but as an adult, I was like,
You're like just impressed that they were able to have 90 episodes or whatever of fucking Yu-Gi-Oh. How many episodes?
I'm not gonna lie, but Yu-Gi-Oh kind of blew me away.
How many episodes was their final runtime? Or
I don't know. I can look real quick though.
You keep vamping about it. I'll look it up.
Okay, but yeah, this movie. As if you're a fan of the show at all and you know how the show went down, there's a few things in it that is kind of interesting story-wise about how some of the stuff should be happening. So I'm pretty excited for the movie. I'm pretty curious to see how they bring back the Millennium Puzzle and everything going on. One note that's interesting is Joey Wheeler is like his best friend. He is in the trailer for a total of like a half second. And I'm curious as to why. I'm thinking something has probably happened to him to turn him into a villain, because they've done that before in the main story arc. He got possessed before.
If IMDb is to be believed, that's a fucking hard sentence to say. 222 episodes, I think.
That sounds about right. And 20-minute, well, I guess 30-minute on Hulu because of the commercials, but you can still blow through it fairly quickly. I did. But yeah, I'm pretty interested in what's going on. I'm curious about the name too, the Dark Side of Dimensions, because it's about Yu-Gi-Oh is about parallel worlds. There's the world we live in. There's the world the monsters live in, because you find out the monsters are real. Spoiler alert. And there is the Shadow Realm. But because of how the main story arc goes on, there shouldn't be any more creatures that should be able to challenge him. So with it not being from the Shadow Realm, I'm guessing, because of the name of the movie, The Dark Side of Dimensions, there's yet another dimension we didn't know about.
No, I can tell you what happened. Fastest man alive, Barry Allen, ported over and fucked up yet another timeline because no timeline left behind. God damn it.
Dude, in the middle of the movie, the Legends of Tomorrow show up to fix it.
Dude, you tell me if that happens, because I will go on to Amazon and buy that shit immediately.
Yugi tries to duel them, and then Sarah just comes in and knifes him in the throat instead. And Yugi's like, what the hell?
Or Heatwave just sets fire to all the cards. This is like, play your game now. Yeah, so you think you'll be watching it once it comes out?
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching it.
You almost are pot committed to watch this now because you just watched the whole show.
Pretty much. I'll probably wait for the Blu-ray release, and I'm probably going to finish my collection. It's pretty cool. The DVD box sets, they make up Exodia when you put them together.
Sweet. That's sweet.
I was like, that works on two levels. One of the best known monsters, and you have to put him together.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. So you own all the seasons for it?
I own 2 seasons.
But okay, yes, but you want to eventually complete it. Okay.
I want to complete them. Best Buy was having them, and then I said Netflix has 2 seasons. So if you're gonna watch it and you have Netflix and Hulu, watch the first 2 seasons on Netflix to avoid the commercials.
Commercial. All right. Yeah, it looked pretty cool. In a perfect world,
the animation was gorgeous on it.
Yeah. In a perfect world, I would actually be curious to go back and check it out, but there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to watch 222 episodes of it.
Well, you say that, but you know how you said you like to occasionally take a break and have something on while playing your phone? I would be playing Dark Souls sometimes while it was on my left monitor or something.
That's true.
Since it's exposition, the TV show, you don't necessarily even have to watch it. You can listen to a lot of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, because they have to make it accessible for people that don't know how to play the card game, right? So
for them to have some semblance of what the fuck's happening.
So it's exposition. The show, they have to explain every move they make in every duel.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a card that you see from episode 1, and you see it all the way to the last episode, and they still explain what the fuck it does every time. Monster Reborn.
Yeah, you wouldn't even probably realize it unless you were binging it. Like they didn't really make that show
If
with
it
the
was, if yeah,
they didn't make that show with the expectation of it being binged by Ron, like all 200 episodes in 3 weeks.
and, I'm gonna say because of the way the duels go down, it doesn't really take away from it, but it does kind of lend itself to you could sit around and play on your phone, or I was playing Dark Souls on one monitor and had it on my left monitor,
and then just wait for exciting shit to happen.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, that is a wrap for our news for the week. So we're going to get into our discussion of the week. We are going to be stopping this podcast at roughly an hour because we've been going for way too fucking long for the last 2 months straight. So I apologize.
It's 25 minutes.
Our discussion of the week, in honor of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 coming out tomorrow. 24 hours, we will be seated and watching that shit, my friend.
Like you said, ass, meat, seat.
I am excited. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite soundtracks in movies, TV, and gaming. And this was a topic that Ron had come up with a while back that we'd added. So I'm going to let you kind of steer the ship on what you'd like to start us out on. We have a list of just some examples we wanted to kind of fall back on. But if you wanted to talk like a generalized intro for it, it's totally your.
I was trying to think of what it was. There was something that I was watching that led to us having a testing conversation that led to me writing down this topic, this discussion point. I'm trying to remember what the fuck that was, because I remember it had some pretty brilliant use of its musical score. But I'm guessing you probably don't remember. It's been on our list to talk about for so long now. But
and we each watch so much shit.
We consume so much media. But yeah, basically, it's some stuff uses music soundtrack just so your scenes aren't kind of dull or just kind of give you something in the background. But sometimes it's used very creatively in very smart places, and neither one of those things can be a bad thing. It just depends on your story and the way you're portraying your story.
By the way, just to clarify, when we say soundtracks, we are also including technically what would be considered a score. We're not just specifically talking, pop hits of the 80s soundtracks like Guardians. We are just talking basically music.
The music in whatever it is, your movie, your TV show, or your video game. Music can make a good thing great, and it can also destroy whatever it is that you've done depending on your use of it.
The first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned that was on Mystery Science Theater, the new season in Wizards of the Lost Kingdom.
James Horner?
It is scored by James Horner, one of the most legendary, probably the most acclaimed composer after John Williams.
Titanic and My Heart Will Go On. Who has not heard of those two things?
And I'm pretty sure they paid him for music, and then they slapped it wherever the fuck they wanted because it is beautiful music on its own.
There's a point when the music ramps up for no reason, and Crow is like, "Hey, wait, guys, listen to the music. Something's happening." Exactly. And then nothing happens, and he's like, "Oh, wait, never mind. False alarm."
At every turn, it is used incorrectly, and it makes the movie even more painfully awkward.
Well, there's a disconnect. Like what you're seeing and what you're hearing is not the same thing.
Because for me, in a lot of instances, the way you were saying you can turn a good thing great, I think in a lot of instances, a really, really good score can kind of become like the heart and soul of the movie because that's exactly what it's there for. You emotionally react positively or negatively depending on the way the music's dictated towards your viewing experience,
Even if it's on a subconscious level for you, the music kind of dictates the flow of whatever it is you're interacting with. And I say that because we're talking movies, TVs, video games. You're not necessarily watching. But whatever it is you're interacting with, it can dictate your flow, and it can change the way you perceive the same image. There are certain scenes in movies and stuff that if you watched it without music, you take it in a different way than with the music. It's punctuated differently. There are some stuff that in, say, Breaking Bad, that the music kind of reminds you of, while you feel like you should be cheering, the music is kind of dark in tone because it's following basically a villain.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And if you had no music to that, it's kind of a fuck yeah moment. And then you're like, fuck yeah, oh, wait. That's kind of terrible in a good way.
In some instances, too, a purposefully not including music can be just as effective, like in the very first Alien movie.
I was going to say that's my favorite example of what I call, especially in a horror movie, the proper use of music.
Because there are so many times where they're following a character walking through, is it the Nostromo? Is that the name of their ship? They're just walking through the Nostromo. There's no music, and all you hear is every little click and clack and, bit of air escaping the valves and shit on the ship. And then when you think you hear something, even if it's not the xenomorph, like, you freak the fuck out because there is no music, and that's for a reason.
In most horror movies, you are clued in by what's going to happen before it happens by the music ramping up, and that's a shame because the effect in your scene is lost. In the movie Alien,
it's shitty horror.
Yeah. In the movie Alien, if you watch it, or I think Sinister did the same thing. If you're watching one of those movies, the music reacts with the audience. And what I mean by that is the thing happens, and as you're freaking out and the character's freaking out, then the music kicks in.
The lawnmower scene.
Oh my God.
The lawnmower scene and the music sting that accompanies it. I jumped out of the fucking chair in the theater because I'm pretty sure I watched that movie. Like, I went to see Sinister on like a Tuesday, or like before it was ever like a discount. I went like an odd day, like the last showing, and I was like the only person in the theater watching Sinister, and it freaked me the fuck out, dude.
How many times have you and I seen the first Alien now? And Halloween 2 years ago, we watched it. Yeah. And there was a scene that
it's so good.
I jumped, and then I was like, okay, that actually got me. And I look over to you, and you're like, yeah, it got me too.
It's so fucking good.
Yeah.
Like, one of my first examples I wanted to throw out is like when I was talking about how like the music kind of becomes like the heart and soul of it all. John Williams' Star Wars music.
I have a John Williams example as well.
If you don't have John Williams' score on Star Wars is functionally not the same. It does not work. At all to me. It
actually ties into my example, especially since it's kind of born from Star Wars. But in Indiana Jones,
my favorite theme song of all time is the Indiana Jones theme song.
Yes, and I do not. I have so many that can hit that, but that's in the running. Star Wars and Indiana Jones follow the same logic, which makes a lot of sense since it's a lot of the same people behind everything. But in Star Wars and Indiana Jones, the purpose of the music behind the scenes is almost like an applause indicator on a game show or like a sitcom that's in front of a live audience. It lends itself, like, it creates the tone in the scene, like when they're with the villains or whatever. Like in Star Wars, anytime Darth Vader is on screen, it creates tension. And then you have something like the Death Star blowing up, or Indiana Jones jumping on or off of a tank that's moving, say. The way the music kicks in, you're just like, fuck yeah, go you! Like, it's a real heroic, like, uplifting sound. And if you take that away, you got a dude jumping on and off of a moving tank, and you have some pretty CGI.
It doesn't resonate the same way.
Yeah, exactly. And if you compare that to like Alien or something, there's music throughout the entire movie, but the way that they create tone and tension in each scene, even though there's a lot more music going on, it's still adding to the product.
While we're kind of talking in that general mindset, one of my inclusions on my list, all of John Carpenter's music for his kind of like during his prime. I'm talking
And
how
the music in John Carpenter stuff is so good because he scores his own shit, doesn't he?
he not only scored his own stuff, he created like that whole subgenre of that kind of. It's very simple. It's usually just like 4 or 5 beats on repeat, like Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe the most influential horror theme ever.
See, and that's a good example. That's a very good example of it doesn't have to be like this massive orchestral thing. It can be one guy sitting at a computer with a keyboard.
His stuff in John Carpenter's The Thing is brilliant too, as far as dictating how you're supposed to react. They do the same thing that Alien did when there are sections where there is no music for a purpose. And there are instances where you're freaking out along with the score, just like in Alien. But especially with Halloween, like his score on Halloween is when you like what was when we were doing our Halloween videos, what was the theme we used on like Halloween. The 16-bit version? We used Halloween. It was so influential. It's like synonymous with not only the movie Halloween, but like the fucking holiday of
and you
Halloween.
Know what? In 16-bit, it's a little bit creepier, actually.
Right. Did you have what's another like example you had that you kind of like want to lump in?
I know we've been talking a lot of movies at the moment, but another movie is another John Williams score that I wanted to talk an example of. That we've been talking examples of tone, examples of I guess like punctuating a scene, stuff like that. But one John Williams score that is just purely there to inspire a sense of awe along with the visuals is that legendary Jurassic Park theme.
I knew where you were going with it, yeah.
Like the first time that you see even just the gates and the music starts to ramp up as you're entering the gates, that's the most epic scene I've ever seen of a movie of a vehicle just driving through a gate.
Yeah, that Jurassic Park riff, like that main one, is just magical.
And I was going to say the first time that you see one of the dinosaurs, which even today is starting to look a little bit dated, but doesn't look bad.
It doesn't look nearly as bad as other stuff around that time.
There's stuff that's like from 2 years ago that look like shit now. That this thing is still kicking its ass. When you see that first dinosaur and the music ramps up, you're just like, oh my God, it's almost beautiful in your mind, and it's a lot of that is to the music. Otherwise, you have some people staring at a dinosaur.
Yep.
But one thing did you have a specific thing you wanted to shift to real quick?
No, go ahead. Continue.
I was going to say an example in video games that I wanted to talk about.
I was going to transition next to video games too.
I was going to say we've been doing a lot of movies and there's stuff in video games too. I wanted to talk a little bit of Dark Souls soundtrack.
I have my second entry on my list was the Soulsborne boss music.
That's exactly where I was going to go. It's not by far the best. It's not by far my favorite, but the best example I can think of is in Dark Souls 3, the Vort music.
It's pretty good.
As far as Soulsborne boss fights go, it's a fairly repetitive fight, but your heart is pounding because the music to that is some of the most intense music.
Maybe my favorite bit of music in the entire Dark Souls and Bloodborne series is the callback in the final Lord of Cinder fight, or Soul of Cinder, where they have the callback to the first game. When that happened, like
they start poking your nostalgia nerve.
Oh my God, it was just a like, it's like a beautiful moment in just
the way that those two musics blend together. To me, it was always beautiful,
gorgeous,
because it sounds like one composition. It's like the first half of that fight is totally designed to transition to that.
The cool thing too is like it ties back into our alien and horror conversation, because Dark Souls doesn't have music unless you're in a boss fight or you're on like the title screen.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
Like it's
even the soundtrack that came with the game that we have. What are the name of the songs? It's the name of all the bosses.
Yeah. Like when you hear music kick in,
It's like title, bosses, credits, and then
yeah, it's
it's
exactly
every song.
it's for a reason, and there are some great themes like some very like iconic ones, especially of the last like for video games. When you think score of the last like 10 years, I can't think of any other series that comes close for the iconic music, at least for me. Because like when you like a lot of the most premier series, they don't typically anymore have scores that stand out because most of them shifted away towards like Call of Duty or like Battlefield, like online multiplayer stuff. Like
Right.
you're not going to be able to have resonance with music and like multiplayer and stuff like that.
I'm trying to think.
The only other one that comes to
Yeah.
mind of the last like 10 to 15 years in gaming for the major titles, Halo actually has really good music.
Oh, if you're gonna say 15 years, then I can say Fable.
Fable.
Yeah, Fable's scored by Danny Elfman.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it sounds like a movie score. And it does what we were talking about in like Indiana Jones and Star Wars, how there's music throughout the game, but it does a very good job as far as like Dark Souls goes in bosses or something like that. And it is, I would say, closer to what we were talking about with Star Wars and Indiana Jones, how it more or less kind of defines the tone of the area you're in, and it punctuates big events.
Yeah, and to kind of like tie in, you had mentioned nostalgia. I think it's very interesting, kind of like the way that we're, as a species, we're kind of built around musical callbacks because, like, I'm sure you have this too. Like, everyone has a song that will make you think, just completely outside of this conversation, but a lot of the time you will have a song that will trigger a specific memory. You know, you have that, like, you'll have for better or for worse, you know, like it could be like a song that you shared with like an ex-girlfriend or something, and you have an attachment to a piece of music in the way that you just don't have to a lot of pieces of entertainment because it hits you in such a like a profound way. Donkey Kong Country soundtrack will forever take me to being 4 years old and playing Super Nintendo, and it is this like you can't fully describe that feeling, but it puts a smile on your face when you
Mega
hear
Man
it.
X. I guarantee you, me and Phil are both Mega Man X.
Zelda has fucking phenomenal, especially the 16-bit Zelda soundtracks. I fucking adore all of that.
Those are good. My favorite Zelda game, which I know goes against all Zelda fans, even my T-shirt, is Ocarina of Time, because it's not, Super Nintendo Zelda.
A Link to the Past.
Yeah,
that's my type of Zelda, not the 3D ones.
Ocarina of Time is my favorite one, in gameplay and story, and I have it lumped in with Final Fantasy VII, and in some instances it's like Dark Souls with the boss fights, but the music in Ocarina of Time is just beautiful, and the way it accents a scene, or even just an area, or dude, the forest temple, the first temple you do as adult Link, is basically just a compilation of jungle sounds, but it's put together like music. And it really gives you the vibe that you were in a forest temple. Stuff like that is, to me, just awesome. It really adds to the dimension that you're there.
Yeah, if you want to know another one outside of gaming that will take me directly back to being a toddler, Batman the Animated Series. Still my fucking ringtone to this day, and it will probably never be changed because as soon as I fucking hear that kick in, it's like, oh, I love it.
You know who you owe for that?
Danny
Elfman.
Because it's like it's basically his score, but they did do some tweaks to it to kind of readapt it.
It's definitely based on his score, but it's their own. They made it their own.
Yeah, they made it their own.
And I think, honestly, in my opinion, without Batman 89's score, you don't get the Batman music that you think of. Because if I hear any kind of music that's similar to that, my brain is programmed to jump to Batman. Some of my favorite with that would be like Under the Red Hood soundtrack. You still there? Well, fuck you, Skype.
Somehow this was Skype's fault, like you said.
Geoff, 5 minutes. We can't get through the last 5 minutes of this goddamn show.
The funny thing is Skype is so unreliable. We thought it was Skype, but it was actually my internet being shitty. But it's still Skype. It's still Skype's fault. But yes, continue before we were so rudely interrupted.
So what I was going to say is basically my favorite example of Batman-esque music is Under the Red Hood. If I hear anything remotely similar to those kind of strings and everything, my brain clicks to Batman.
It's probably, I don't know for sure, but it was probably Christopher Drake, who I love. His Dark Knight Returns music is great too. He's been kind of the main go-to Batman guy for the last few films.
The guy gets Batman music. And
he's also, one of his main influences is John Carpenter as well.
Is it?
So he has a lot of John Carpenter-esque kind of like simplistic kind of techno beats, especially in Dark Knight Returns.
What's funny about that is he's got a lot of inspiration from John Carpenter, but his music is more in the stylings of John Williams a little bit with
it kind of depends on
the
which
brass
project
section he uses.
It kind of depends on the project because he kind of maps it, because like Dark Knight Returns is an 80s kind of vibe, so Dark Knight Returns has a heavy Carpenter-esque kind of flavor to it in sections.
Since we're talking about it, there's one thing that always impressed me with its music. This is almost an aside, but for Batman Beyond to be able to update music to something like akin to what a teenager would listen to that still yells Batman at you.
That Batman Beyond intro music is fucking metal as fuck.
Not only that, dude, think about Return of the Joker's intro music. It is Batman. It is almost the 89 score done in heavy metal.
So good.
It is so good. But I have one example I wanted to close out with. Did you have anything else that you wanted that we didn't touch on?
Let me write through I had more if we ever did like
I had one thing I had to touch on. So.
Okay, my last thing I will touch on 90s Tarantino.
Yes.
Reservoir Dogs and especially Pulp Fiction. Any of the Pulp Fiction songs.
I still need to see Reservoir Dogs?
It's good. It's no Pulp Fiction, but it's a fucking good movie. But Pulp Fiction,
it's got Keitel in it and I haven't seen it.
If you hear any of the individual soundtrack entries on the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, you immediately fucking think of that movie. It is so ingrained in its like DNA almost. But yeah, close this out with your final one.
So very similar to the way Guardians of the Galaxy and Deadpool accentuated stuff by using actual music, actual pop songs or rock songs or whatever, or rap in Deadpool's case and stuff. The thing that I wanted to close out on that is like, to me, the ultimate example of taking something that you have and adding to it to make it better has got to be, at least the ones I've played, Grand Theft Auto. In the car, all the radio stations, number one, the radio station DJs added, dude, they went out of their way to like write their own bullshit songs that are some of the most hilarious things you have ever heard. But they sound like songs you have heard from the 80s or 90s or there whatever.
Are a fuck ton of them. Like, they put some time investment in making that radio channel last a long time.
They did. And like, there's different stations you can flip through. There's as many in that game as there are in the city we live in. Right. And dude, the DJs and everything, It is incredible. There was no need to do that. Someone got an idea and they fucking ran with it.
Bless you, Rockstar.
And
it is so good.
It is so good. But like that, I lumped that in with Guardians of the Galaxy and Deadpool because they each kind of have their own score, but they elevate what they have by proper use of, actual music, actual chart leading music. And it was done beautifully in Guardians of the Galaxy. It was done very well in Deadpool to comic effect. To me, that's even more difficult a little bit.
Deadpool actually putting in the Deadpool rap from the YouTube guy was amazing.
That was amazing and meta.
Yeah.
And to me, just one of the ultimate ways to fail your project is the god-awful music selection on Assassin's Creed. The trailer.
Oh, and Power Rangers, too, bringing in that Kmart Kanye.
Yes.
It didn't match. First of all, it wasn't a good music. Second of all, it didn't match it at all.
Yeah. It doesn't match the tone. It doesn't match what you're seeing, and it's a complete disconnect. And what did it do to you and me? We were kind of like, what the fuck is this? And a YouTuber ended up taking Assassin's Creed Revelations trailer music and putting it on top of the trailer after removing that god-awful music. And what happened when we watched it? We're like, this looks like a fucking amazing movie. Why didn't they do that?
And I have one last entry that I just thought of.
Sure.
Mad Max Fury Road has some music that will get your fucking blood pumping, man. Actually, I want to say it's the same composer as Deadpool. You wouldn't think of those two guys as the same, but I want to say it's the same dude. But yeah, I can still think. I watched Mad Max Fury Road the last time 2 years ago, and I can still think of that main theme, that as they're going and all the chases, they kick in that main theme.
Yes.
You can still think of it in your head. It's really impressive.
When you have a meth head playing strings while hanging from strings,
it's like dun 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 dun. Yeah, that it's like, oh, it's so good.
It
makes
so
good. Just thinking of that song makes me want to watch the movie. When your soundtrack is not only good while you're watching it, but it is a draw to get you to revisit something, that's when you have something special.
Yes.
Just like with Guardians of the Galaxy, you burn me a copy of that CD, I'll occasionally just throw on the fucking Guardians of the Galaxy CD just because.
That's probably, considering what we're watching tomorrow, that's probably what I'll be listening to all day long.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through roughly the first movie. I'm trying to get the first movie watched before we go tomorrow night, and I probably will pop in the CD on the way to and from work tomorrow as well. But yeah, I think we'll go ahead and call it that. Any other last thoughts? I think we touched on a lot of good examples. I have more, and we can obviously come up with more if we ever wanted to do this again, because it's pretty fun talking about.
I think it'd be fun to talk about music in media fails.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If you would like to check us out more, please like and subscribe. We also have Let's Plays and a Game of Thrones series we do for the old seasons and the new, especially right now we're doing season 3. A lot of good Khaleesi stuff if you are a Game of Thrones fan.
Speaking of music and media.
Yeah, how did we not fucking talk about Game of Thrones?
But I had it on my list, and then we were at an hour, so yeah, I did.
We will put a pin in that for a later discussion. Social media links for Facebook and Twitter are in the description, and please share us out to your friends and family. We would greatly appreciate it. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
And man, I'm so excited for Guardians of the Galaxy, Dad. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's gonna be good.
That's the other thing, too, that just shows you how good their soundtrack is. Everyone knows the fucking name of it. It's the Awesome Mix.
Yes.
Who knows the name of a fucking soundtrack like that,
And it is truly, truly an awesome mix.
It is totally fucking in every sense of the word. Bye, guys. We will see you next time.